Welcome to your new channel. Discover the power of words and learn to speak better.
Welcome to the debate. So picture this. You wake up at exactly 6:30 a.m. You hit snooze once, maybe twice, and finally drag yourself out of bed at 6:40.
Right? The classic, slightly painful start to the day.
Exactly. And from there, you have precisely 10 minutes allotted for your morning routine. You grab a quick piece of toast, mostly because, well, cooking eggs just takes way too much time.
You're operating like a finely tuned machine at that point, hitting every single mark.
Yes, just to get out the door by 8:15 a.m. But I want us to think about our own mornings for a second. When you live like this, are you actually thriving or, are you just surviving?
And I think that is exactly the core of it. Because when we try to force our biology and our psychology to run like clockwork, to tick in these perfect, unyielding increments, friction builds up. The system inevitably grinds down. I mean, we simply aren't designed to be wound up so tightly.
Well, that's what we are unpacking today. We are looking closely at two really fascinating case studies, Emma and Jack. They have meticulously documented the minute-by-minute architecture of their daily lives.
Down to the smallest details.
Right. We are looking at everything from their morning alarms to their commutes, their office habits, and their evening wind-downs. So the central question we are debating today is this. Is a structured, predictable routine like theirs the optimal framework for a productive life? Or is a more flexible, responsive approach inherently necessary for our true well-being?
Right. And I'll be taking the stance that flexibility is absolutely required to prevent burnout. Because when I look at Emma and Jack, I see biological organisms being forced into a mechanical straitjacket.
A straitjacket, really?
Yes. Their rigid 9-to-5 schedules are incredibly draining and honestly unnatural. They constantly need flexibility and occasionally outright rule breaking just to prevent a total systemic collapse.
Well, I'll be arguing the exact opposite. I see their structured, predictable routines as absolutely essential. The sheer volume of modern life demands efficiency, and a strict schedule is the only way to manage it without falling apart.
I just don't see how strict adherence prevents falling apart. It seems to cause it.
Well, look at the vocabulary of their habits. Emma and Jack instinctively distinguish between their schedule, so the specific times things happen, and their routine, which is the predictable order of those activities. Strictly adhering to both is actually what allows them to thrive.
Thrive is a very strong word for what they are doing.
But look at the actual behavior. Waking up at a consistent time, eating a quick, predictable breakfast to secure morning energy, walking exactly 20 minutes to work to, save money and get some exercise.
Right, but
By adhering to this structure, they automate their physical existence. And this automation is what makes it possible to manage the heavy cognitive load of the modern workplace.
at what cost?
I mean, they're processing 30 to 40 emails a day, navigating back-to-back meetings. The schedule is not a straitjacket, it is the scaffolding that allows for high-level performance.
Okay, but again, at what cost? You are describing a morning that prioritizes the clock over the individual's actual state of being.
How so?
Just contrast Emma's highly engineered, rushed morning with Jack's approach. Jack deliberately chooses tea over coffee because it helps him relax and wake up slowly.
Which is his preference, sure.
Exactly. Preference. He prefers to shower at night so his mornings aren't this frantic dash. A routine should serve the individual's natural biological rhythms, right? It shouldn't act as a daily emergency protocol.
I wouldn't call a 6:30 alarm an emergency protocol.
But it acts like one. When you force a 6:30 a.m. alarm, you are often interrupting deep sleep cycles. You are artificially spiking cortisol before the body is biologically ready to wake up.
Well, the body adjusts.
Does it, though? We see the exact consequence of this when Jack talks about trying to wake up at 5:30 a.m. for a run. He fails to do so, and then he's unable to go back to sleep. And what happens? He's left completely exhausted all day. That is the reality of forcing an unnatural schedule on a human being.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. Think of a strict morning routine as a cognitive defense mechanism.
A defense mechanism?
Yes, every time you make a decision in the morning, what to wear, what to eat, whether to walk or take the bus, you are burning glucose in your prefrontal cortex. You are depleting your decision-making fuel before the day even starts.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Exactly. Emma strategically chooses her clothes the night before. She limits her makeup application to 10 minutes. She packs a lunch from last night's leftovers. She keeps the morning completely frictionless.
Frictionless, maybe, but also joyless.
Not joyless, automated. By automating those mundane choices, she preserves her immense cognitive bandwidth for the high-stakes decisions required at her job. If you spend your morning leisurely cooking eggs and, meandering through your preferences, you are expending your mental resources before you even reach the office.
But that cognitive bandwidth you claim is saved in the morning. It appears completely depleted the second they are subjected to the office environment.
I completely disagree. They manage heavy workloads beautifully.
You claim this routine protects mental resources, but their workday habits show a workforce constantly teetering on the edge of exhaustion.
I wouldn't call it exhaustion. The highly structured management of their work environment is the only way they accomplish so much.
Accomplished, sure, but they are drained.
One of them is processing 30 to 40 emails a day. The other is managing up to 15 emails plus multiple team meetings. You cannot manage that volume without a strict container.
A strict container that requires constant maintenance.
They sustain their focus through strategic, scheduled breaks, taking a pause at 10:30 a.m. just to drink water, eating a healthy piece of fruit, like an apple or banana, at 11 a.m.
Right.
Why? Specifically to avoid the blood sugar crash that candy would cause. This isn't teetering on exhaustion. This is proactive energy management. A schedule properly adhered to sustains focus and facilitates massive output.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. Treating the day like a rigid spreadsheet completely ignores human biology, and their habits perfectly illustrate the breakdown of this spreadsheet.
A breakdown? Where is the breakdown? They get the work done?
You mentioned the structured breaks. But why are they so desperately necessary? Because the system itself is inherently draining. Look at the universal 2 to 3 p.m. fatigue slump they both experience.
Everyone gets a little tired in the afternoon.
Cognitive overload. It requires constant, almost medical-level patching.
Medical-level patching is a bit dramatic.
Is it? They have to rely on a second cup of coffee in the afternoon or take a mandated 5-minute walk just to endure the final hours of the shift. The meetings you mentioned earlier, they explicitly note how tiring they are.
Well, work is work.
Yes, but they note that some days it feels like they are entirely consumed by them.
But they endure it and they produce.
They endure it at a massive psychological and physiological cost. Think about the commute for a second. Emma takes a 30-minute bus ride that is entirely at the mercy of traffic.
Right, which is why she leaves early.
Exactly. She has to leave early, quote unquote, just in case. It's a massive drain of time and autonomy. So what does she do? She listens to English podcasts.
Which is a great use of time. Self-improvement.
It isn't just self-improvement, though. It's a frantic attempt to reclaim stolen time. She's trying to optimize a fundamentally miserable experience.
Miserable is a strong word.
But look at what happens next. What is the very first thing that happens when the 9 to 5 is over? The moment they get home, they rush to change out of their work clothes and put on sweatpants and a t-shirt.
Well, yeah, people like to be comfortable in their own homes.
But have you ever wondered why that physical transition is so urgent? It feels good to relax precisely because the preceding 8 hours were a physical and psychological burden.
Interesting.
The routine isn't a benefit. It's a constraint. They are desperate to shed the moment the clock strikes 5.
I think you are misinterpreting the role of that physical transition.
And that exhaustion is exactly why the evening has to be so heavily engineered.
Engineered to recover from the day?
No, the evening isn't an escape from structure. It's a different kind of structure that restores order. The weekdays are maintained by a highly consistent evening routine.
Which is just more scheduling.
But good scheduling. They eat dinner around a predictable time, 7 p.m. They maintain a system of taking turns cooking simple, healthy meals. Pasta, rice with vegetables, chicken, fish.
They also order takeout.
Yes, they occasionally order takeout, but it's part of a managed cycle, and their relaxation is just as purposefully scheduled as their work.
Which sounds exhausting in itself.
Not at all. They spend about 1 hour playing adventure or sports video games, reading fiction, or watching American shows with subtitles. It's measured relaxation.
Right.
And then, crucially, they maintain a strict bedtime of 10:30 or 11 p.m. Why? Because they know they absolutely need 7 to 8 hours of sleep to regulate their hormones and consolidate memories for the next day. The evening routine perfectly resets the board. It is a beautiful, self-sustaining loop.
A self-sustaining loop that completely unravels the moment Friday night hits.
Unravels? I wouldn't say it unravels.
Oh, it absolutely unravels. If the weekday routine was so restorative and so perfectly aligned with human needs, their weekends wouldn't look like a frantic rebellion against it.
The weekends are just a different schedule.
Come on, their weekend schedules are fundamentally different. It is a structural collapse. Instead of that rigid 6:30 a.m. alarm, they sleep late, sometimes until 11 a.m. on a Sunday.
Catching up on sleep is normal.
Instead of the 10:30 p.m. bedtime to get a healthy 8 hours, they stay up until midnight or 1 a.m. watching movies. Why? Because they don't have to wake up early the next day.
Right, they have the freedom to choose.
Exactly. The entire concept of preference, choosing what you actually want to do, only truly exists for them on the weekend. They finally get to watch football or tennis on TV. They go to a big field in the park and play football with friends for hours.
They're just utilizing their free time.
The 9-to-5 schedule is basically taking out a high-interest payday loan on your biological energy, and the weekend is the frantic attempt to avoid bankruptcy. The fact that this intense desire for unstructured time explodes on Saturday and Sunday proves that the weekday routine actively suppresses their natural desires.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it differently.
How so?
The weekend's lack of structure is only enjoyable. It only possesses that profound sense of freedom because the weekday routine exists.
You think they only like the weekend because Monday through Friday is so strict?
Contrast is what gives an experience its psychological value. If every day were a Sunday, sleeping until 11 a.m. would lose its restorative power. It would just become lethargy.
I don't know about that.
Think about Jack going for a Sunday walk in nature and how peaceful it feels. That peace is entirely dependent on the contrast to the 30 to 40 emails of the weekday.
But they shouldn't need such extreme contrast just to feel at peace.
The 9-to-5 structure creates the economic stability, saving money by bringing lunch from home or walking 20 minutes to work that literally buys the freedom of the weekend.
Okay, but let's analyze that economic angle.
Sure. The strict weekday schedule isn't a payday loan. It is the engine that generates the resources and the psychological contrast required to truly enjoy the unstructured time.
You mentioned saving money by walking to work or packing dinner leftovers because buying restaurant food every day is too expensive.
Right, which is smart budgeting.
These are survival strategies within a restrictive system. The schedule demands so much time and energy that extreme efficiency becomes the only way to stay afloat.
I call that being responsible.
But look at what happens when Emma or Jack goes to a cafe near the office once or twice a week for a sandwich or a salad. They note it's nice to just take a walk and get fresh air.
It is nice to get fresh air.
Yes, but they are basically paying for brief moments of unstructured reality. The rigid schedule creates a deficit of fresh air, a deficit of autonomy, and they have to purchase it back in tiny increments during a strict 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. lunch break.
It is not a deficit of autonomy, it is a masterclass in discipline.
Discipline to what end, though?
Look at the behavioral patterns here. The reliance on absolute behaviors, doing things the exact same way, day in and day out, builds deep neurological pathways. It reduces the cognitive cost of daily living.
Reducing cognitive costs is just another way of saying they are running on autopilot.
When you have a set routine, doing things in the exact same order, it makes life fundamentally easier. You don't have to think too much. In a world characterized by overwhelming choice and constant incoming data, having a set routine is the ultimate psychological armor.
I don't disagree that it makes functioning within the industrial machine easier, but I question if merely functioning should be our highest aspiration.
We aren't just functioning, we are maintaining a balanced life.
Are we? Look at the sheer frequency with which the concept of relaxing comes up in their habits. Reading fiction before bed because it's relaxing, playing video games to forget about work, doing yoga in the evening.
Those are healthy hobbies.
This indicates a nervous system in constant distress. If the strict daily schedule were truly optimal, people wouldn't need to dedicate so much of their evening and weekend to rigorous recovery protocols.
Recovery protocols?
Yes, the strict schedule forces us to view relaxation not as a natural state of being, but as a medical intervention required to survive the next shift.
I wouldn't call it a medical intervention. I call it intentional maintenance.
Maintenance implies something is constantly breaking down.
Or being preserved. Look at how they manage their social lives. Even connection is systematically integrated. Calling family members who live in another city, setting up a video call once or twice a week.
Right.
Or specifically calling parents on Sundays to catch up. Structuring this ensures it actually happens.
But doesn't that take the joy out of it?
If we rely solely on your proposed flexibility, on spontaneous desire, important things fall through the cracks because we are simply too busy. The schedule ensures that physical health through walking and yoga, mental health through reading, and social health through scheduled calls are all consistently maintained.
Honestly, I find it slightly melancholic to view calling one's mother as an item to be slotted into a schedule, right alongside taking out the trash and answering 40 emails.
It's prioritizing what matters.
When you structure everything, you risk turning genuine relationships into operational obligations. But returning to the physical realities, consider their bedtime routines.
Okay, let's look at them.
They rely on reading on a tablet or a paper book specifically to fall asleep quickly. Why do they need a routine just to fall asleep?
To calm the mind down.
Because the artificial 9-to-5 schedule has completely disconnected them from their circadian rhythms. They require a structured wind down to essentially trick their brains into sleeping before they are naturally ready.
Trick their brains?
Yes, also they can wake up before they are naturally rested just to beat the morning traffic.
It's not tricking the brain. It's providing the brain with consistent environmental cues. Consistency is what biological organisms crave at a fundamental level.
I think organisms crave rest when they are tired, not when an alarm tells them to be tired.
We are daylight-driven creatures, yes, but by utilizing an alarm clock, maintaining a consistent 8-hour sleep window, and eating meals at predictable times, we are actually giving our biology the predictability it needs to regulate cortisol and melatonin.
That sounds nice in theory.
The structure doesn't fight biology. It anchors it in an environment that is otherwise incredibly chaotic.
If it anchors biology so well, I return to my point about the 2 p.m. slump and the weekend rebellion. The behavioral evidence heavily points to the contrary.
Well, we certainly read the evidence differently.
We do. But as we synthesize these viewpoints, I think we have to acknowledge that the constant, pervasive need to take breaks, to eat specific snacks to avoid crashes, to change into sweatpants instantly upon returning home, and to completely abandon the schedule on weekends.
Mm-hmm.
All of this proves that flexibility and listening to one's own internal needs are absolutely vital. A rigid schedule might maximize short-term output, but long-term sustainability requires the flexibility to rest when tired, not just when the clock strikes 10:30 a.m.
And to summarize my position in light of our discussion, I maintain that distinguishing between a schedule representing time and a routine representing order provides the fundamental framework necessary to navigate modern complexities.
It certainly provides a framework, I'll give you that.
Yes, it requires discipline. Yes, it involves setting an alarm and managing energy with healthy snacks rather than candy. But this framework is precisely what allows an individual to successfully process high workloads, save financial resources, maintain physical health through managed rest, and ultimately create the space for those relaxing evenings and peaceful weekends. Structure is the prerequisite for freedom.
We definitely approach the core philosophy differently, but I will acknowledge an area of convergence here.
Oh,
Finding the right balance is clearly a deeply personal endeavor. We see this vividly in the contrast between Emma and Jack themselves.
that's true. They are quite different in the details.
Right. One uses coffee to accelerate. The other prefers tea to wake up slowly. One uses a morning shower as an alarm bell. The other uses an evening shower as a transition to rest. The ideal approach likely exists somewhere in that delicate negotiation between the demands of the external world and the realities of our internal rhythms.
I agree with that completely. The nuances of how we manage our time are highly individualized.
Absolutely.
It has been a fascinating exercise to take these mundane, everyday habits, from how we commute on a bus, to what we eat for lunch, to how we arrange our mornings, and analyze the deep psychological and biological mechanisms behind them.
Yeah, there is clearly much more to explore regarding how we balance the necessity of structure with the desire for freedom in our everyday lives.
We've really only scratched the surface of what our daily habits reveal about our values, our constraints, and our neurobiology. Sustainable?
The great debate continues in everyone's living room.
But I want to leave you with this final thought. We often view our routines as the gears of a clock, ticking away relentlessly. But a schedule isn't a machine that operates us. It's a tool we build.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, you are the one who decides whether that tool is helping you build a life or just helping you get through the week.